Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In the wake of her breakup with Billy Abbott, the air around Sally Spectra felt heavier than usual, as if Genoa City itself understood that something fragile had just shattered. Sally had known the end was coming. She felt it in the subtle shifts in Billy's tone, in the way his attention drifted, in the tension that coiled between them whenever Adam's name surfaced or when Billy's ambition flared into recklessness. Still, knowing didn't make it hurt any less. When she officially ended things with Billy in that quiet but emotionally charged moment, she held her head high. She refused to cry in front of him, she refused to beg, she refused to let him see how deeply she had invested herself in the idea that maybe, just maybe, this time she had chosen the right man. Afterward, alone in her suite, Sally allowed the tears to fall. She had given Billy her loyalty, she had defended him, she had believed in him even when others whispered that he would inevitably self-sabotage. And once again, she found herself standing amid the wreckage of a love story that had promised stability but delivered chaos. But Sally Spectra had never been a woman who stayed broken for long. As she stared at her reflection in the mirror, she thought about her future, not just her career, not just her independence, but her heart. She needed time, time to breathe, time to remember who she was outside of a man's shadow. Yet even as she vowed to focus on herself, Genoa City's eligible bachelors loomed in the background like possibilities waiting to ignite. And the first name that flickered through her mind surprised her. Nick Newmans. Her history with Nick had been complicated, intense, and undeniably real. There had been passion, there had been trust, there had also been heartbreak, especially when Sharon Newman's presence cast a shadow over everything. But Nick had once looked at Sally like she was the only woman in the room. He had defended her when others judged her past. He had believed in her talent. Now Nick's future wasn't exactly carved in stone. While he shared a deep bond with Sharon, their path forward felt uncertain. Sharon's growing connection with Detective James Burrow had not gone unnoticed. The chemistry between them simmered in subtle glances and charged conversations. If Sharon's attention drifted toward the detective, where would that leave Nick? Would he find himself looking back at the fiery redhead who had once challenged him, supported him, and loved him fiercely? Sally could imagine it, a chance encounter, a vulnerable conversation, Nick admitting that he missed her strength, her honesty. She could almost hear him saying he'd made mistakes. But would she risk stepping back into that orbit? Nick had a gravitational pull that was hard to resist, yet with him came the Newman family drama, the ever-present Sharon factor, and the fear of history repeating itself. Still, the spark between them had never fully died. Then there was Noah Newman. Young, idealistic, devoted to Sienna Bacall, at least for now. Sally had watched Noah from a distance, noticing the sincerity in his eyes and the way he wore his heart openly. He wasn't jaded like some of the older men in Genoa City. He hadn't yet learned to armor himself against disappointment. But Sienna and Noah's romance carried the unmistakable scent of impermanence, passionate, yes, eternal, unlikely. When it ended, and Sally sensed it would, Noah would be devastated, and in heartbreak people often found comfort in unexpected places. Sally imagined what it might be like to sit across from him, sharing stories of betrayal and disillusionment. She imagined laughter returning slowly, cautiously. She imagined him looking at her not as someone with a complicated past, but as someone strong and inspiring. Could she heal alongside him? The idea of something softer, something less combative than her previous romances held appeal, but would she feel passion? Would there be fire? Sally was many things, but lukewarm had never suited her. Her mind drifted next to a far more dangerous possibility. Adam Newman's. The mere thought of him stirred emotions she wasn't entirely prepared to confront. Adam had once consumed her world. Their chemistry had been explosive, undeniable, and reckless. They had been partners in ambition, allies in scheming, lovers in defiance of everyone who doubted them. And then he had hurt her deeply. He had chosen power over her, he had broken promises, he had left her questioning her worth. Adam was currently content with Chelsea Lawson, at least on the surface, but peace in Genoa City was often temporary, and there were still viewers, still whispers, about what Adam and Sally had once been. Would it be foolish to consider him again? Absolutely. But foolish and impossible were not the same thing. If Adam ever came to her with genuine remorse, if he truly fought for her instead of for power, would she turn him away? Sally told herself she would. Yet her heart remained dangerously quiet. Then there was Cain Ashby. Cain was a man rebuilding his reputation after missteps that had rippled through lives and legacies. Sally had criticized some of his choices, she had questioned his judgment, but she also understood what it felt like to be defined by past mistakes. Her own history wasn't spotless. She knew what it was like to claw her way back from public humiliation to prove she deserved respect. Cain, too, was navigating that road. What if they found common ground in redemption? What if late-night conversations about regret turned into understanding? What if understanding turned into attraction? The idea of Sally and Cain together would send shockwaves, especially through Lily Winters. A triangle between Sally, Cain, and Lily would be explosive, layered with history and rivalry. Could Sally handle that kind of battlefield again? She had survived worse. And sometimes controversy only made her stronger. By the time the sun dipped below the skyline, Sally realized something important. She wasn't afraid of love. She was afraid of choosing wrong. But being single, truly single, gave her the power to choose carefully this time. And Genoa City was full of possibilities waiting to test her resolve. Days passed and Sally threw herself into work, designs, meetings, presentations. She refused to be the woman licking her wounds while Billy moved forward with his relentless ambition. Still, romance lingered in the periphery. Detective James Burrow had become a familiar presence in town, his steady demeanor contrasting sharply with the chaos that often surrounded the Newman and Abbott families. If things didn't progress with Sharon, he would undoubtedly be searching for something real. James was observant, grounded, not easily intimidated. Sally imagined what it would be like to date someone outside the corporate battlefield, a man who dealt in facts instead of power plays, someone who might see through her defenses but respect them. A detective falling for a woman with a complicated past carried poetic irony. Would he judge her history? Or would he admire the resilience that came from surviving it? Sally liked the thought of being with someone who didn't need to dominate a boardroom to feel powerful. But then came the most scandalous possibility of all. Kyle Abbott. The mere suggestion felt dangerous. Kyle was entangled in tension with Audra Charles, whose fixation on him bordered on obsession. Audra's jealousy was a force of nature, sharp, strategic, and unapologetic. Sally and Audra shared a complicated friendship. There was mutual respect, there was shared ambition, there was also an unspoken understanding that in Genoa City, alliances were fragile. If Sally and Kyle ever ignited something real, it would detonate that friendship instantly. And that drama, oh that drama, would be irresistible. Kyle was charming, intelligent, and emotionally layered. He carried Abbott legacy in his veins, but also the hunger to define himself. Sally could match him intellectually. She could challenge him creatively. They would sizzle. But at what cost? Audra would not take betrayal lightly. Sally found herself packing one evening, her thoughts circling back to Billy. Despite everything, part of her wondered if he would wake up one morning and realize what he had lost. Billy had a habit of recognizing value only after it slipped away. If he came back, remorseful and determined to change, would she listen? Or had she finally reached the point where self-respect outweighed nostalgia? She refused to be anyone's fallback plan. As the days turned into weeks, Sally noticed something shifting within her. The desperation to fill the void began to fade. She wasn't rushing into anyone's arms. She wasn't scanning every room for a potential savior. She was rediscovering herself. That confidence, the one that had propelled her from scandal to success, returned slowly but surely, and with it came clarity. Nick represented comfort and history. Noah represented possibility and gentleness. Adam represented fire and danger. Cain represented redemption and controversy. James represented stability and surprise. Kyle represented scandal and spark. Each man offered something different. But Sally realized something powerful. The next chapter of her life wouldn't be about which man chose her. It would be about which man deserved her. She wasn't the insecure newcomer fighting for validation anymore. She was a woman who had survived heartbreak, betrayal, ambition, and rivalry. She had built a name for herself. She had learned painful lessons. Whoever stood beside her next would have to stand as an equal. Genoa City buzzed with speculation. Whispers traveled through Newman Enterprises' Jabot Crimson Lights. Who would Sally date next? Would she return to an old flame or ignite something brand new? The town loved a romance. But Sally loved power, the power of choice, the power of independence, the power of walking away when necessary. And as she stepped into the next phase of her life, she did so not as someone desperate to heal, but as someone ready to thrive. Her romantic future remained unwritten. And that uncertainty, it thrilled her. Because for the first time in a long time, Sally Spectra wasn't chasing love. Love would have to chase her.